Today, we discuss the value of the 102 in your Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues. We discuss who we are considering to take here, trades that occurred in real leagues, hypothetical trade situations, and who our consensus pick is right now. Stick around for all that and more. And welcome into the Dino Construction Podcast. Justin joined with David and JP. You're going to get a great recording here today because it's actually our second time recording this. Had some audio issues. We're not happy with how it turned out. So this should be a pretty polished product here. We're excited to talk all about the 102 here. This is part of a bigger series, Superflex picks 1 through 12, discussing same things for all of them. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe so you catch the whole series. We'll have all picks put out here. That being said, let's hop right into the draft board. And David, a lot of picks to read. Will you read everyone that's gone before the 101 for us, real quick?
Yeah, sure. Just want to say we'll put a link to the last picks video in the description as well. So for this video, that'd be the 101. The only pick we have so far, Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise. Pretty much a slam dunk consensus 101 for most of us. So that video was not too difficult. This one, maybe a little bit more so.
And when we get to the players who are available here, there are some studs. Like, this is an exciting pick, a lot of flexibility. Although we probably consider the next 3 picks a tier, there's some value to being able to take a player based on your team need, not just necessarily who's left that you might get stuck with at the 104, even though we consider it a tier. So the players we're considering here, the very first guy, the guy I'm going to make a case for, Tet McMillan, superstar wide receiver, 6'5", 6'4" was 6'5" previously. I feel like had a little combine shrinking, 219 pounds, max speed on GPS tracking, 20.9 miles per hour, almost 21 miles per hour, although did not run at the combine. Projected to be the NFL's first wide receiver taken.
If I could just jump in real quick, he did have a pro day like a day or two before we're recording this. I've seen 4.48 and 4.55. I don't know. It's a little harder to get an actual time at a pro day, but I think that's right in the range we were expecting. I think that's also the range that nearly 21 miles an hour would suggest. So, not a bad time. Just wanted to throw that in there, though.
Yeah, and at his size, 220 pounds, 6'5". I mean, if he was a 4'4" guy, like 4'4" flat or sub 4'4", but at 4'5", at his size and the ability that he has, this guy has wiggle in the open field. You see a strong missed tackles forced 0.35. This is also a guy with a lot of yards after catch per reception, a career 5.5 yards after catch, 26 career touchdowns, 3,400 career yards, young breakout age, 0.12 first downs per route run, 2.87 yards per route run last season. Just some of those advanced metrics you love to see. To me, wide receiver is the safest position that has the ceiling to still be a round one startup pick. I think he's a low bust prospect and somebody I'm very, very interested in taking at the 102. And go ahead with our next case for Cam Ward, I believe.
Yeah, Cam Ward, he's got a really strong case to go here as well. I mean, super flex leagues, we know quarterbacks are very, very valuable. And if you look at the first round of a startup, it's going to have somewhere around 8 quarterbacks in there. And you see the tippy top of the draft, the top 3, 4, probably 5 picks are quarterbacks as well. So they have the most upside value in Dynasty. They could have the most value of any position out there. They're very impactful as well. I mean, you need to start 2 of them. And if you don't have a high end quarterback, it really hurts you a lot. And Cam Ward, he's looking very likely to be the 101 in the NFL draft. And that's going to buy him a lot of time to prove himself as a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's got a pretty good profile. I know people really don't like this quarterback class. I think Cam Ward is a pretty good prospect. I mean, this year he had 39 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He is actually younger than Shador Sanders as well, despite playing one more college season. Not sure how that happened, but he's got some pretty good tools as well. He's not a super mobile guy, but he's pretty creative in the pocket. He sees pressure pretty well. He evades it, extends plays. He's also a big game hunter that is not afraid to chuck it down the field. So that's pretty valuable for fantasy when you're getting more deep shots in there. And I think he's got a pretty good arm. His arm talent's pretty good as well. So I think he's a pretty safe pick for just value installation. It's a riskier position to see if that kind of quarterback top end of the draft is going to work out. The hit rate isn't as great as you think it would be, but I think he's a really good prospect, and I think he's got a strong case here.
Well, let me just also give you just a little bit insight into how he is younger than Shador Sanders. It has a lot to do with when their birthdays are, JP.
Oh,
Yeah, I got you.
well,
And David, who is the last person we are who is the last person we are debating on here at the 102?
Yeah, I think he's actually younger than both Shador and Cam Ward. So, what's that mean about his birthday, Justin? I'm a little confused.
I think his birthday was after theirs then. I'm
Ah,
pretty
thank you.
sure.
Yeah, like Omarion Hampton has to be in consideration here too. He's kind of separating himself as the RB2 in this class. I think not just my opinion, but a lot of people's opinion. Had a great combine, ran sub 4.5. His RAS score was a 9.6. Good jumping numbers. Over 1,500 rush yards each of the last two seasons. Or I think it was exactly 15 rushing touchdowns actually the last two seasons. But very productive. Two productive seasons. Love to see that. Got the size. He's young, early to clear. All he needs is a solid landing spot to cement himself in these first, four picks. I think. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the first round of the NFL draft at this point. Two running backs going in the first is kind of rare, but it's that kind of class, and I think Hampton's that kind of prospect. So be excited to see where he goes. I would not be surprised if his name gets called day one.
Yeah. And with day one draft capital, his consideration for this spot certainly goes up quite a bit. So we are going to move into our value proposition segment where we're going to talk about what exactly is the value of this 102 pick. We're going to start out, as we always do, with a couple trades straight out of dynastydaddy.com. And we're going to look at first here to you, David. Start 11, 1.5 tight end premium, the 101 or the 102 and 202.
Did you ask me this one last time when we recorded? I don't remember it.
This was the one I asked JP last time. I'm trying to mix it up on you guys.
I like that. I like that. You guys will never know what JP thinks about this trade. Sadly, lost in the history. Start 11. Like if I earned that 101, I'm probably not ready for Janty. So I think I could take this on the clock, but being that it's the middle of March, almost, a month away from the draft, still a little over. I think I'm going to hold for now, unless I've done all the shopping of the 101 I can, which I just don't think makes sense at this point because, people get that itch as you get closer and closer to the draft. I think you could squeeze more for that move. But if you get on the clock and you're not ready to draft Janty and that's the best thing in your inbox, I can see taking it. I'm just not doing it right now.
I think I would have a genuine conversation with this person and simply say, I'm pretty interested in this. I think this is a fair trade. I'm just not ready to make it right now. Is this still going to be on the table later? Because if they tell you, I need a running back, I'm going to take this 102 and 202 and buy a different running back, and this is not going to be on the table later. Like it could be getting greedy and trying to get more later though. So while I agree with David in general and process, I would check in and see if am I losing the opportunity to make this trade because it's not a bad price point, right? For the deal. Just a little early to make it. I agree with what you're saying.
To be fair, how much can you trust his response? I mean, I was negotiating with someone a week ago, and they said they'd smash this offer if I sent it. Through a little negotiating, I sent the offer. He's just not taking it. What's up with
Did
that,
you
Justin?
did you try to like squeeze some more out of me and then make me like really evaluate whether or not the trade was worth it rather than just sending the offer that
Irrelevant.
smashed right away?
Irrelevant. I sent the offer and you just
Erroneous
never
on
read
all
it.
accounts. JP, next trade for you. Start 10, 1.5 tight end premium, Amon Ra, or the same package, the 102 and 202.
I think I value Amon Ross St. Brown a little higher than where I would Genty, so I would lean the Amon Ross St. Brown side.
Yeah, I feel like that's one I'm taking that direction as well. Again, both these trades pulled from dynasty-daddy.com. Great resource to see what is out there in the ether actually happening in dynasty leagues. Now, some other hypotheticals. David, throwing this one at you again. The 102 or Brees Hall. Last time you were taking Brees Hall, you've had some time to sit on this.
Yeah, I'm ready this time. Like, I think this is a fair question. I think, kind of like I was saying with my last answer, if I'm on the clock at 102, I need a running back. I don't love Marion Hampton's landing spot, maybe. I could definitely see taking this. And as I'm sure you could put together last time we recorded the one that's not being shown with the audio issues, I actually did side with Brees Hall barely, but I did qualify it. And I think this time, after thinking about it, I got to go with the flexibility of the 102 right now. I think there's a lot more you could do with it between now and the draft. I think I would consider Brees Hall on the clock, like I said, but I do think uh, the flexibility of the 102 is the clearer choice here.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. And my line for Brees Hall, it's going to be a little bit lower, probably 104 or so, 105. 105 might even be. I think I'd prefer Hampton. So happy to see you've come to your senses here. No, just kidding. Honestly, you made some really good points in the last episode when talking about Brees Hall versus the 102. Just the fact that he's done it as a hammer and proven studs versus young guys. Last year's draft class was an outlier. 10 guys being in the first 2 rounds of startups now, or whatever it is, from one draft class. Not something we should expect from this or any draft class, right? Like, just obscene. So, looking to go veteran production, never a bad idea. Just maybe aiming a little bit higher than Brees Hall or trying to get something back on that side, right? JP, next one we have for you, and you're a fan here, the 102 or Dunze.
Yeah, like you said, Adunze, I'm a big fan of him. I think that he can have a breakout year. I think he's probably pretty similar level of prospect to Tet, but when you're looking at just flexibility with the 102 right now, I gotta side with the 102 over Adunze.
Just looking at that same tier, actually, we had a Dunze in a tier right below a bunch of guys. We had him below the likes of Garrett Wilson, the likes of help me fill in the blanks here. I'm drawing a blank here.
JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ladin McConkey, AJ Brown.
And that list right there. JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr., Lad McConkey, AJ Brown, and Garrett Wilson. Are there any of those guys that you prefer the 102 over? I'll start with David first.
Not really. I'm a big fan of that tier of wide receivers. I could see Tet being in that tier, but when we're thinking about Tet being the leading candidate for most people's 102, do you prefer the still very young but somewhat proven NFL receiver who has tremendous upside, or the rookie receiver with no NFL experience with tremendous upside?
I mean, Tech could be anything. He could even be JSN. JP, same question for you. Is there any of those players, maybe AJ Brown on a rebuild, but are there any of those players that you would consider taking the 102 over?
And like first off, I had actually a Dunze in that the back end of that tier. I kind of had it split a different way, but just consensus, yeah, that's how our tiers broke down. But I'd prefer Tet over AJ Brown. I mean the 102, not Tet. I'd prefer the 102 over AJ Brown. I think it's close for guys like Garrett Wilson and Lad McConkey, but when it's close, I'm probably going to stick with the guy that's proven at that point. But AJ Brown, he's kind of the one that sticks out that I'd take the 102 over.
And the last pick or player, 102 or Purdy, David.
That one's pretty tough as far as these straight up 102 for player picks go. If I need a quarterback, I do prefer Purdy to Ward. I like the situation that we know Purdy is in compared to the situations we expect Ward to be in. I would be shocked if Purdy doesn't get his contract extension. So if I need a quarterback, if my thought process is I'm taking Cam Ward at 102, if I don't move out of it, then I'll take Purdy. But if I'm set at quarterback and I would just be getting excess here, I'd rather have the pick.
That's a pretty good answer. And I think it's definitely positional need dependent, but needing a quarterback, the 102 is a pretty cheap price for a quarterback that you feel comfortable with. So, and it's not unattainable, right? That's a trade I think you could definitely see getting done simply because it's rookie draft season. People are going to want these rookie picks. They might be willing to pay more than they would have previously. And this pick, the 102, we feel like this is part of a tier range of picks. David, will you talk a little bit about just in general how you view this tier if you don't have team needs and what that tier is?
I was gonna start with the team needs thing. So yeah, this tier we've talked about these three players. It's Hampton, Tet, and Cam Ward. I do think team needs though is really important for this tier specifically, since these three players all play different positions. So it is realistic that you're targeting one of these guys over the other two. In that case, your price to move around in this tier should be different. But if you're rebuilding or you've got a strong roster and you can draft any of these three guys and comfortably add them to your team, I mean, a mid second, a future second, I think is enough to get me to move. I might hold off until the draft starts, but I'd go to 104 for a future second and be pretty happy with that. Whoever falls to me there.
And JP, if you're trying to angle for this 102 and you're at the 104 and you know, I want to get up to this pick, I want to be able to take the position that I actually need. I don't seem to be able to trade the 104 for somebody in that position. Maybe it's running back, maybe it's a wide receiver, maybe it's quarterback. What are you willing to add to that 104 to get here if you know really you just need this one position and it's going to hurt your team and maybe you have to take the RB3 or the QB2 in the draft and you don't want to have to do that?
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario is probably I'm playing in a league where quarterbacks are valued really highly, and I can't really get a quarterback like a Bo Nix, a JJ McCarthy, some guy in that kind of stratosphere of quarterback, and I really need it. Then I'm probably moving up to 102 for that quarterback in that scenario. And kind of like what David said, I'd probably be comfortable sending away a second. If it is really hard to pry those quarterbacks away, I might be wanting to do an earlier second, like a 203, 204. I don't think I would do 201, 202 though, because if you look at our mocks, that's where some guys like Ibuka, Travis Hunter, Matthew Golden, Colson Loveland. I really like those. There's 14 guys I really, really like specifically. But once I get to 203, 204, I'm a little bit more open to doing that if I really, really feel like I have to make the move.
Yeah, it's an interesting tier and a very valuable pick. However, we won't always get to make trades. So let's look at our closing arguments for who we would pick at this spot. Our closing arguments are going to be broken down between Tet McMillan and Cam Ward. David, you're going to make our quick arguments for Tet McMillan and do your worst.
Look, I think you covered a lot of it up top. One of the things that really stands out to me is the missed tackles forced per attempt at his size. For reference, at 0.35 is very close. I think it's a little higher even than Malik Neighbors last year. Guys of his size aren't supposed to be able to move like that in short areas. That's just really freakish. He's also got great hands. And there's a lot of concern about whether or not he can actually be an alpha at the next level. But there haven't been any games played since, for Arizona, I think the beginning of December, maybe, if I'm guessing middle. I think they played a bowl game. But when their season ended, we loved Tet. We loved everything about him. We thought he's a stud. And, now people are overanalyzing things to the point where, we're starting to question this. And I just think that's a little silly. He's huge. He moves well. He's got good hands. He's got some stuff to work on. Sure, he might not ever be a tier one wide receiver, but I think he could live in tier two for several years. So, wide receiver is maybe even already the safest position in Superflex as far as maintaining value and at least liquidity. Quarterbacks don't lose a ton of value, but you got to find the right match if you're trying to trade a quarterback. Pretty much everyone always wants a stud young wide receiver.
Can't disagree with that there. I'm going to make a brief case, really just kind of reiterating some of the main points JP said earlier. It's super flex. You got to start two of them. And if you don't have two good ones, you're up against it. You can do it. You can build without him, but it's tough and it's hard to sustain an actual lasting dynasty without them. And when it comes to guys taking overall as the 101, what are we seeing right now, right? We're seeing guys like Baker getting a second and a third shot, right? So even if things don't work out for a guy like Cam Ward right off the back, which it's plausible to say that they could, he's a guy who's going to have staying power because of being the 101, or we're projecting that he probably will be. And also, he had a great profile. JP mentioned all the statistics, the numbers, the 39-7 touchdown to interception ratio, not killing it on the ground, 336 rushing yards this past season. But you have to remember that also, you know, subtracts sacks in that total. So enough mobility to, make a difference, add enough fantasy points, 4 rushing touchdowns, 500 rushing yards. If he's putting that up in the NFL, we're pretty ecstatic for fantasy purposes. It's not game breaking, but it's QB1 making, right? Even if it's mid to back end as opposed to top three. So, quarterback that has that potential, pretty hard to say no to that. And JP, will you reveal for the people our final decision?
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. These are the two most valuable positions in dynasty fantasy football leagues. I gotta say that between these two, that the receiver and Ted McMillan, his profile, it's just a little bit safer than what we see with Cam Ward here. Both very valuable positions, but let's go with the safety of Ted McMillan, who also possesses a lot of upside as well.
At the end of the day, I think David's point, and that's the point we've been talking about on this channel here, because we like to talk strategy trends. Where are things going? And that point about just how wide receiver has been trending to be the most valuable position over time is something that I think cannot be understated, right? It's the most liquid. When you go on to dynasty-daddy.com and you look up the trade database, you see so many more wide receiver names than you see names of running backs. So even just briefly sharing my screen here to this trade database, when you see the purple names, right? The purple names and the percentage that's taking up of it, we're looking at about half of the trades occurring with wide receivers. Then we look at quarterbacks, and there's not a lot of names out there. And they're not the names that you really want to try to move a lot of the time, right? Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy, Kyler Murray, Michael Penix. Those are fine pieces, but when we lock our value in the high end, top end quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, they're great. We love to have them, but the flexibility is not quite there. So I really appreciate that point, David. And I think that point about the liquidity of it, of a wide receiver, maintains the liquidity of the draft pick, I think, a little bit better. I think is a good tiebreaker at this point. All right. So fun episode. We hope you enjoyed our reshoot. I think we brought a better product the second time around. So maybe we should shoot every episode twice. Quit our day jobs, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Because we're all clearly rich and can afford to do that.
No problem. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Data Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen or view. And from all of us here at the Dino Construction Podcast, until next time.